At sister's wedding, I was given a paper badge which said limited access guest. MOM quietly conveyed that signifies no meal. I glanced about, approached the gift table, withdrew my envelope holding the $10,000 fund check, then stated, "I believe you'll not require this any longer." Sister hastily followed me, as my parents cried get back, yet I. Okay, buckle up, because I have a story for you. What if the people who were supposed to love you most decided you were an embarrassment? What if they erased you from their lives, like you never existed, just because you chose a different path? Well, that's my story, and believe me, the comeuppance was epic. My name is Ingrid, and 4 years ago, on the night before Mother's Day, my own mother cast me out. Not with a shout or a tearful phone call, but with a cold, calculated message in our family WhatsApp group. She told my siblings, "All my children are successful, except Ingrid. She chose to be a lowly teacher. I no longer see her as my daughter." And then, just like that, I was gone. Removed from the chat, like I'd never belong. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just vanished, exactly the way she wanted. What she didn't know then was that 4 years later, I'd be standing on a stage in front of 500 people, the governor of Virginia shaking my hand, and she would be in the audience, uninvited, waiting for a moment in the spotlight that would never, ever come. That night was the turning point, the night I lost the family I thought I had and started building the one I truly deserved. Growing up in our Virginia suburb, the Fairbanks family was, to put it mildly, picture perfect. My mother, Margaret Fairbanks, was this formidable woman who retired from banking at 55, not for rest, but to secure her coveted seat at the Westbrook Country Club. The membership alone cost more than my annual salary. She draped her Hermes scarves like armor, always in those muted tones that screamed old money, even though our money was, let's be honest, barely a generation old. My sister, Victoria, was the crown jewel. 38, a plastic surgeon in Richmond, her clientele read like a local celebrity list. Her Instagram was a curated tableau of Rolexes on linen tablecloths, perfectly manicured hands around champagne flutes at charity galas. She'd casually mention her subtle work, as if we couldn't see the tightening, the ever-fuller lips. Then there was Bradley, 40, a corporate lawyer in D.C. He drove a Mercedes G-Wagon, always parked it where it couldn't be missed at family gatherings. His wife, Carolyn, collected designer handbags with the meticulous obsession of a philatelist. And then there was me, Ingrid. The youngest. The one who didn't quite fit the family's perfectly manicured portfolio. I was a 4th grade teacher at Maple Creek Elementary, a sweet, small school tucked away in the farmland, 90 miles from my mother's pristine colonial revival. My Honda Civic was 12 years old, and my apartment? It could have fit inside Victoria's walk-in closet. But here's the thing no one ever mentioned at those country club brunches. My mother had 2 successful children. A doctor and a lawyer. Never 3. I was simply not counted. I didn't choose teaching because I couldn't do anything else. When I graduated high school, I had a 4.1 GPA and a full scholarship offer to UVA for pre-med, just like Victoria. My mother had already ordered a future doctor bumper sticker for her car. The narrative was set. But that summer, I volunteered at a literacy camp. There was this 8-year-old boy, Marcus Jr., who couldn't read past the 1st grade level. Everyone had told him he was slow. By August, he was devouring chapter books. The day he finished Charlotte's Web, he hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. That was it. That was the moment I knew. I called my mother that night. Told her I was declining the scholarship. I wanted to study education. I wanted to teach elementary school. The silence on the other end lasted 17 seconds. I counted. "You're throwing your life away," she finally said. "For what? A government salary and ungrateful children?" She didn't come to my college graduation. Said she had a conflict, a garden party at the club. Victoria sent a card with a $50 check and a note. "Good luck with your little career." I cashed the check. I needed groceries. But I never forgot the message buried beneath those words: "You chose wrong. You chose less. And we will never let you forget it." To my mother, choosing meaning and choosing to be poor were exactly the same thing. The exclusion wasn't sudden. It crept in slowly, like mold in the corners of a neglected room. Thanksgiving 2019, I arrived at my mother's house with a homemade sweet potato casserole, her favorite, Grandma Ruth's recipe. When I walked into the dining room, I found my place card at the small folding table in the corner. The one set up for Victoria's stepchildren and Bradley's toddler nephew. "Oh, honey, we just ran out of room at the main table," my mother purred, adjusting her pearls. "You don't mind, do you? You're so good with children." I was 30 years old. Christmas was worse. I'd spent 3 weeks knitting my mother a cashmere scarf in her favorite shade of dove gray. She held it up, smiled thinly, and said, "How, handmade." Then she turned to Victoria, who'd gifted her a Chanel clutch, and spent the next 20 minutes gushing about the stitching, the hardware, the craftsmanship. My scarf ended up in the coat closet. I found it 2 months later, tags I'd carefully removed, stuffed back inside the tissue paper. But the final, brutal blow came on her birthday in early 2020. I called to ask what time dinner was. "Oh, Ingrid," she sighed, her voice dripping with practiced regret. "The restaurant only had 6 seats available. Your father, Bradley and Carolyn, Victoria and her date. You understand, don't you? Family comes first. 6 seats. And somehow, I wasn't family enough to fill one of them. But all of that, the folding table, the forgotten scarf, the restaurant with no room, none of it prepared me for the actual, total erasure. The only person in my family who still treated me like I existed was my cousin Rachel. She was 24 then, Aunt Patricia's daughter, 8 years younger than me, fresh out of college. We'd been close since she was a kid. I used to babysit her, take her to the library, help with homework when her own parents were too busy fighting. Rachel was the kind of person who noticed when you were hurting, even when you tried to hide it. The night before Mother's Day 2020, my phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Rachel's name. When I answered, her voice was shaking. "Ingrid, I need to tell you something. I didn't know if I should, but you deserve to know." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Check your WhatsApp." The family group. I opened the app, scrolled to Fairbanks Family Dinner, the group my mother had created 3 years ago to coordinate holidays. I wasn't in it anymore. "Rachel, I know. They removed you. Your mom asked Victoria to do it last week, but she only got around to it tonight." Rachel's voice cracked. "Ingrid, I'm so sorry. I screenshot everything. I'm sending it to you now." My phone buzzed. One image, then another. I stared at the screen, at my mother's words frozen in digital ink. And something inside me went very, very quiet. "Why are you telling me this?" I whispered. "Because you're my family," Rachel said. "Even if they've decided you're not theirs." I saved those screenshots in a folder I titled Proof. I didn't know then that I'd need them, but I couldn't let those words disappear. I read that screenshot 47 times that night. Not because I didn't understand the words, I understood them perfectly. I read them over and over because some part of me kept searching for a loophole, a phrase that might mean something different. A context that could soften the blow. There wasn't one. The message was from my mother, posted at 8:03 p.m. Reminder: Mother's Day dinner at the Jefferson, 7 p.m. sharp. All my children will be there. All my successful children. Ingrid chose to be a lowly teacher. I no longer see her as my daughter. Please don't mention her name tomorrow. Below it, Victoria had replied with a heart emoji. Just a heart. No protest. No hesitation. Bradley's response: "Understood, Mom." 2 words. That's all I was worth to my brother. 2 words and total compliance. I sat on the edge of my bed in my tiny studio apartment, phone clutched in my hands, and I didn't cry. God, I wanted to fall apart, to scream into a pillow, to call my mother and demand an explanation. But what would that change? She'd made her decision. She'd announced it to the family like a press release. Ingrid is no longer one of us, and everyone had agreed. I stayed awake until 2 a.m., staring at those messages, reading the timestamps, noticing that not a single person, not my father, not my aunt, no one, had pushed back. Rachel was the only one who thought to warn me. By sunrise, I'd made a decision of my own. If my mother wanted me gone, I would be gone. Completely. On my own terms. But I would not forget, and I would not delete those screenshots. Summer seats you just keep forever? Mother's Day morning. I woke up to silence. No calls, no texts, no awkward. "We miss you, wish you could make it." From Victoria. Nothing. For the first time in 30 years, I didn't send my mother flowers. I didn't call. I didn't drive 90 miles to sit at a corner table while she pretended I didn't exist. I made myself coffee. I graded papers. I went for a walk along the creek behind my apartment complex, watching the water catch the morning light. And I thought about my options. I could call her, confront her, demand to know why she'd said those things, why she'd cut me out, why being a teacher made me unworthy of her love. I could screenshot her message and post it online, let the world see what kind of mother raises a doctor, a lawyer, and a daughter she throws away. I could show up at the Jefferson uninvited, make a scene, force them to acknowledge my existence. But what would any of that accomplish? My mother had made her choice. She'd chosen status over her own child. She'd chosen the opinions of women at a country club over the daughter who'd loved her for 3 decades. If she wanted me to disappear, I would give her exactly what she asked for. But not because she demanded it. Because I chose it. I blocked her number that afternoon. Then Victoria's. Then Bradley's. I deleted Instagram so I wouldn't have to see their curated family photos. I didn't know then that my silence would last 4 years. I didn't know that those 4 years would change everything. All I knew in that quiet moment was this: I would not beg to be loved by people who saw me as a stain on their reputation. The world kept spinning, and the Fairbanks family kept pretending I was never part of it. 6 months after that Mother's Day, Rachel called with an update I hadn't asked for. "Thanksgiving photos are up," she said quietly. "Victoria posted them an hour ago." I told myself I wouldn't look. I lasted 3 hours. The image showed my mother at the head of her formal dining table, flanked by Victoria and Bradley, their spouses perfectly arranged behind them. Crystal stemware caught the light. A massive turkey glistened. The caption read, "Grateful for my amazing family. Mom, you raised us right." 3 people. Not 4. My chair wasn't even empty. They'd simply reconfigured the table, as if it had always been set for 6 instead of 8. By Christmas, I'd stopped torturing myself with social media, but Rachel still called. "Your mom tells everyone you're doing volunteer work in Africa," she said. "Some kind of education nonprofit, very prestigious. Can't come home because you're changing lives overseas." I laughed, the bitter kind that scrapes your throat. She's lying to cover up that she disowned me. She's lying so no one asks questions, so she doesn't have to admit she kicked out her own daughter for being a teacher. Rachel paused. "Ingrid, she told Mrs. Patterson at the club that you were nominated for some international teaching award in Kenya." I hadn't left Virginia in 3 years. That's when I understood. My mother didn't hate me. She hated what my existence said about her. So she'd invented a version of me she could brag about, a humanitarian hero, conveniently unreachable. The real me, the one who taught 4th grade 90 miles away, I was already a ghost. I met Marcus Webb on a Tuesday in October, surrounded by pumpkins and giggling 9-year-olds. His farm, Webb Family Organics, was a local legend, 50 acres of rolling hills, heritage vegetables, a small orchard where families came every fall to pick apples and take photos against the red barn. I'd brought my 4th graders on a field trip to learn about sustainable agriculture. Marcus was waiting by the tractor when our bus pulled up. Tall, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and soil permanently embedded under his fingernails. He shook my hand. "You must be Miss Fairbanks. My daughter hasn't stopped talking about you." His daughter was Lily, 5 years old, golden curls and a smile that could melt glaciers. She was in my colleague's kindergarten class, but I tutored her twice a week after her mother passed away from cancer the year before. "Lily's an incredible kid," I told him. Smart as a whip, curious about everything. Something shifted in his face. Gratitude, maybe, or the recognition of a kindred spirit. "She says you're her favorite teacher in the whole school, even though you're not technically her teacher." He smiled. Her words. That field trip turned into a phone call. The phone call turned into coffee. Coffee turned into a picnic under the old oak tree on his property, where Marcus asked about my family, and I told him the truth. "I don't have one," I said. "Or they decided they don't have me." He didn't ask for details. He didn't push. He just handed me a slice of apple pie. His late wife's mother had taught him to make it, and said, "Family isn't always blood, Ingrid. Sometimes it's the people who show up when everyone else leaves." That was the moment I started believing him. 2 years passed, like pages turning in a book I was finally writing for myself. In 2022, Marcus and I got married. Not at a country club, not with 300 guests and a 12-tier cake. We exchanged vows under that oak tree, with Lily as our flower girl and a handful of friends who'd become family. I officially adopted Lily that same year. The day the paperwork came through, she handed me a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. On the bottom, in wobbly kindergarten letters, she'd written, "My mom, my dad, me." I keep that drawing in my desk at work. Some days, when the world feels heavy, I pull it out just to remember what matters. I finished my master's degree in educational leadership through night classes and summer sessions, typing papers at 11 p.m. after Lily was asleep, studying during lunch breaks, determined to prove that ambition didn't require abandoning the students I loved. When a position opened up for assistant principal at Maple Creek Elementary, I applied. The interview panel included 3 school board members, and Marcus recused himself from voting. I got the job anyway. Through all of it, I stayed invisible. No social media, no press releases, no proud announcements to the family that had erased me. Somewhere in Richmond, my mother was still telling people I was saving children in Africa. Somewhere in D.C., Bradley was still pretending he'd never had a second sister. Somewhere online, Victoria was posting photos of family dinners at tables that would never have a place for me. They had no idea who I'd become. And I wasn't ready to tell them. Not yet. The phone call came on a Thursday afternoon in March 2024. "Mrs. Fairbanks Webb?" The voice was formal, precise. "This is Diana Morrison from the Virginia Department of Education. The board has reviewed your application, and I'm pleased to inform you that you've been selected as the new superintendent of schools for Clark County." I sat down on the edge of my desk, my legs suddenly uncertain. Superintendent. The position I'd applied for on a whim, never believing I'd actually be considered. Overseeing 12 schools, 4,000 students, 200 teachers. "Are you certain?" I managed. "Your track record speaks for itself. Literacy rates up 18% in 3 years. Teacher retention the highest in the region. The mentorship program you developed is being adopted statewide." A pause. "Dr. Hart specifically recommended you. She said you were the best educator she'd ever worked with." Eleanor Hart, my mentor from my first year teaching, now the state education commissioner. I hadn't spoken to her in months. The announcement hit the local papers 2 weeks later. "Local teacher rises to superintendent." A small headline in the Shenandoah Valley Voice, complete with my photo from the school district website. I didn't think anyone in my family would see it. I was wrong. Rachel called that evening, breathless. "Ingrid, your sister just posted that article in the family group chat with the caption, 'Isn't this our Ingrid?'" My stomach tightened. What did my mother say? "Nothing. She hasn't replied." But Rachel hesitated. "I was at Aunt Patricia's when it happened. Your mom called Victoria immediately. I could hear her through the phone." "Ingrid," Rachel recounted. "My mother was furious. Furious that I got the job. Furious that she didn't know. Furious that she'd been telling everyone I was in Africa, and now there was proof I'd been here the whole time." The email arrived 3 days later. Subject line: "From your mother." I almost deleted it unread. Almost. "My dearest Ingrid," it began. "I saw the wonderful news about your promotion. I always knew you had it in you. We should meet for lunch soon. I'd love to hear about everything you've accomplished. Mother's Day is coming up. It would mean so much to have the whole family together again." No apology. No acknowledgement of the 4 years of silence. No mention of the WhatsApp message that had shattered me. Just an invitation, as if nothing had happened. As if I'd simply been away on a long trip and was now welcome to return. I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, my phone rang from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Ingrid, it's Victoria." Her voice was honeyed, warm, a tone I hadn't heard since we were children. "I know it's been a while, but I wanted to reach out personally. Mom hasn't been feeling well, and she's been asking about you. She really wants to see you." "What's wrong with her?" "Just stress. You know how she gets, but she misses you, Ingrid." "We all do." I called Rachel that night. "Is my mother sick?" Rachel snorted. "She was at the spa yesterday. Posted a selfie in the eucalyptus steam room." A beat. "Ingrid, they're not reaching out because they miss you. They're reaching out because you made the news." I already knew, but hearing Rachel confirm it made the truth settle into my bones. "Can I ask you something? Have you ever received one of those reconciliation calls?" The kind where you can hear the insincerity dripping through the phone? If you know exactly what I'm talking about, comment yes below. And if you want to know what I did next, keep watching, because what happened at that award ceremony, even I didn't see it coming. I wish I could tell you I was strong every single day. That I never wavered, never questioned, never lay awake at 3 a.m. wondering if I was the villain in my own story. But that wouldn't be the truth. The doubts crept in slowly after that phone call from Victoria. At work, colleagues kept congratulating me. The superintendent announcement had spread through the county like wildfire. Everyone wanted to shake my hand, ask about my plans, share how proud they were. And then came the questions I dreaded. Your parents must be over the moon. My assistant principal beamed one morning. I bet your mom is bragging to everyone at church. I smiled, nodded, changed the subject. That night, I sat at the kitchen table while Marcus washed dishes and Lily did her homework at the counter. The silence felt heavier than usual. You're somewhere else, Marcus said without turning around. Talk to me. I pressed my palms against my eyes. Victoria called. Said Mom's been asking about me, that she misses me. I looked up at him. What if I'm wrong, Marcus? What if I've been too harsh? She's still my mother. Maybe I should have. Should have what? He dried his hands, turned to face me. Called her back? Gone to dinner? Pretended the last 4 years didn't happen? My voice cracked. I don't know. I just keep thinking everyone forgives family, right? That's what you're supposed to do. What if I'm the bad guy here? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the office, disappeared for a moment, and returned with his laptop. I want to show you something, he said. Something I've been saving for a moment exactly like this. Marcus set the laptop on the table and opened a folder labeled Ingrid, do not delete. Inside were files I'd almost forgotten existed. The first, a screenshot of my mother's WhatsApp message, the one Rachel had sent me 4 years ago. The timestamp glowed in the corner, May 9th, 2020. 8:03 p.m. The words hadn't changed. I no longer see her as my daughter. The second, my mother's email from 2 weeks ago. My dearest Ingrid. With no apology, no acknowledgement. The third, a photo from Victoria's Instagram, Thanksgiving 2020. The family portrait with the empty space where I should have been. The caption. Mom, you raised us right. I saved everything, Marcus said quietly. Every message Rachel forwarded, every photo that showed up online. I backed it all up to the cloud with timestamps and metadata because I knew this day would come. He sat across from me. I knew there'd be a moment when you'd forget why you walked away. When you'd start wondering if you were the one who failed. I stared at the screen, at the evidence of my own erasure, and felt something shift inside me. You didn't fail, Marcus continued. You survived. You built a life. You became someone, not despite them, but without them. He reached across the table and took my hand. You don't owe forgiveness to people who never asked for it. You only owe yourself the truth. I closed the laptop slowly. Rachel sent you something else, I said. What is it? Marcus hesitated. Are you sure you want to see? I nodded. He pulled up one more screenshot. A new message from the family group chat, dated just yesterday. And when I read it, everything became clear. The screenshot was from the Fairbanks family group chat, the one I'd been removed from 4 years ago. My mother's message glowed on the screen, dated the day before. Wonderful news! Ingrid is being honored at the State Teacher of the Year ceremony next month. It will be televised. I've already confirmed our attendance. We'll arrive early, sit in the family section, and join her on stage for photos. Victoria, wear your red Valentino. Bradley, bring Carolyn. This is an opportunity to show everyone that the Fairbanks family stands together. Victoria's response. Already picked out my dress. Should I bring flowers? Bradley. I'll clear my schedule. Good PR move. Not a single person had asked if I wanted them there. Not a single message mentioned reconciliation, an apology, or even a private conversation before showing up at the biggest moment of my career. They're planning to hijack your ceremony, Marcus said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Walk in like nothing happened. Pose for cameras. Take credit. I read the messages again, slower this time. My mother's words echoed in my head. This is an opportunity. Not I miss my daughter. Not I was wrong. An opportunity to fix her reputation. To reclaim the narrative. To stand beside me in my moment of triumph and pretend she'd been there all along. They don't want me back, I said, the realization settling, cold and final, in my chest. They want the version of me they can show off. Marcus nodded. So, what are you going to do? I looked at the screenshot one last time. At my mother's careful orchestration, my siblings' eager compliance, the complete absence of anything resembling remorse. I'm going to let them come, I said quietly. And then I'm going to tell the truth. We gathered around the kitchen table that night, Marcus, Rachel on video call, and me, like generals planning a campaign. You could uninvite them, Rachel suggested. Call security, have them removed if they try to enter. Then I'm the villain, I said. The ungrateful daughter who barred her own mother from her award ceremony. That's the story they'll tell everyone. So what's the alternative? Marcus asked. Let them waltz in and pretend they've been supporting you this whole time? I'd been thinking about this for hours, running scenarios, weighing options. No, I said finally. I let them come. I don't cause a scene beforehand. I don't warn them or confront them. I took a breath. And then, when I give my acceptance speech in front of 500 educators, television cameras, and the governor of Virginia, I thank my family. Rachel's face on the screen went still. I thank my family, I repeated. My husband, Marcus, who believed in me when no one else did. My daughter, Lily, who taught me what unconditional love looks like. And that's it. Silence hung in the air. You're not going to mention them at all? Marcus said slowly. Why would I? They're not my family. They made that clear 4 years ago. I pulled up the screenshot of my mother's WhatsApp message on my phone. I don't need to expose them. I don't need to read this out loud. I just need to not include them. The absence will speak for itself. And if your mother tries to come on stage anyway? Rachel asked. I smiled, the first real smile I'd felt in days. Then I'll remind her very politely that I'm simply honoring the boundaries she set. She said I wasn't her daughter anymore. I'm just taking her at her word. Dr. Eleanor Hart called me 3 days before the ceremony. Ingrid, we need to talk. Her voice carried the no-nonsense directness I remembered from my first year teaching, when she'd been the principal who'd taken a chance on a nervous 22-year-old. Something's come up. I braced myself. What happened? Someone contacted the ceremony coordinator last week. A woman named Margaret Fairbanks said she was your mother. Eleanor paused. She requested to speak during the family remarks portion of the program. Wanted to say a few words about raising you. My grip tightened on the phone. She did what? The coordinator passed the request to me, since I'm giving the introduction speech. I turned it down. Another pause. Heavier this time. Ingrid, I don't know the full story of your family situation. You've never told me, and I've never asked. But I know you. I've watched you work for 15 years. And I know that if you wanted your mother involved, you would have mentioned her yourself. I exhaled slowly. Thank you, Eleanor. I'm introducing you on that stage, she continued. And I'm going to talk about your achievements, your dedication, your 15 years of changing children's lives. Not your family name. Not who raised you. Just what you've built with your own hands. She softened. You earned this, Ingrid. Nobody gets to rewrite that story but you. When I hung up, Marcus was watching me from the doorway. Your mother tried to get on stage. Eleanor blocked her. He shook his head slowly, not in disbelief, but in confirmation of everything he already knew about the woman who discarded me. She really thinks she can just walk back in, he said. She thinks she deserves to, I replied. That's the difference. The night before the ceremony, I sat at the kitchen table with a blank notepad, a cup of chamomile tea, and the weight of 4 years pressing against my chest. Lily had gone to bed an hour ago, her small hand waving from the doorway. Good luck tomorrow, Mom. You're going to be amazing. Marcus was in the living room, giving me space to write. He understood that some words needed to be found alone. I stared at the blank page. I would like to thank. My pen hovered. Who did I think? My colleagues, obviously. Dr. Hart. The board members who'd believed in me. The students who'd made every early morning and late night worth it. And then what? I thought about my mother. About the woman who'd hosted country club luncheons while telling her friends I was saving children in Africa, who'd erased me from family photos like airbrushing out a blemish, who was at this very moment probably laying out her outfit, practicing her proud mother's smile, rehearsing whatever speech Eleanor had already denied her. I started writing. I want to thank my family. The family I chose, and the family that chose me back. My husband Marcus, who saw me when I was invisible. My daughter Lily, who taught me that love isn't something you earn. It's something you give freely. I put down the pen. That was enough. That was everything. No mention of the Fairbanks name. No acknowledgement of the people who'd announced my exile in a group chat. Just the truth. The family in my speech was the family that had actually shown up. Done? Marcus asked from the doorway. Done, I said. Tomorrow, I would stand in front of 500 people, and for the first time in 4 years, I would let my silence speak. The Virginia state capitol had never looked more imposing. I'd seen photos of the building my whole life. Thomas Jefferson's neoclassical design, the white columns, the dome that seemed to touch the sky. But standing at the entrance in my navy blue dress, Marcus on my arm and Lily holding my hand, I felt like I was walking into history. The ceremony was being held in the House chamber. 500 chairs arranged in precise rows, each one filled with educators from every corner of the state. Principals, teachers, school board members, superintendents like me who'd spent their careers in classrooms before ascending to offices. And cameras. 3 news crews, including a live feed to the Department of Education's website. I signed in at the registration table. A volunteer handed me my badge. Ingrid Fairbanks Webb, 2024 Virginia State Teacher of the Year. Congratulations, she said warmly. Your family must be so proud. I smiled. They are. We took our seats in the front row, reserved for honorees and their immediate families. Lily sat between Marcus and me, her legs swinging beneath her chair, too short to reach the floor. She wore the dress we'd picked out together, soft yellow with tiny embroidered daisies. Mom, she whispered, tugging my sleeve. Is that your name up there? I looked up. A massive banner stretched across the stage. Virginia State Teacher of the Year 2024, Ingrid Fairbanks Webb. My name. 50 feet wide, impossible to ignore. I squeezed Lily's hand. Yes, sweetheart. That's my name. Behind me, I could feel eyes. The prickling sensation of being watched. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I already knew who was sitting in the second row, uninvited and undeterred, waiting for a spotlight that would never shine on them. I heard them before I saw them. Excuse me, that's my daughter up there. Yes, the honoree. I need to be in the family section. My mother's voice carried across the chamber with practiced authority. The same tone she used to command waiters, to silence dissent at dinner parties, to convince strangers she belonged wherever she stood. I kept my eyes forward. Breathe. Just breathe. From my peripheral vision, I watched them arrive like a delegation. My mother in cream Chanel, pearls at her throat. Victoria in that red Valentino dress she'd mentioned, cinched waist, dramatic neckline, camera ready. Bradley in Tom Ford charcoal. His wife Carolyn trailing behind in Oscar de la Renta. They swept into the second row, directly behind us. And I heard my mother stage whisper to the woman beside her. I'm Margaret Fairbanks, Ingrid's mother. I raised that girl from the day she was born. Everything she is, she owes to me. The woman nodded politely, glancing at the banner, then back at my mother. Victoria leaned forward close enough that I could smell her perfume. Ingrid, you look well. I didn't turn around. Didn't acknowledge her. A hand touched my shoulder. Aren't you going to say hello to your family? Bradley's voice, casual, entitled. I turned my head just slightly. Not enough to face them, just enough to be heard. My family is sitting right next to me. Then I turned back to the stage, Lily's small hand warm in mine. Want to know what happened when I gave my speech? When my mother heard me thank everyone in my life except her? I promise you, you won't guess her reaction. If you're still with me, tap that like button and stay. The next 3 minutes are the reason I'm telling you this story. Dr. Eleanor Hart walked to the podium with the same quiet authority she'd carried into every classroom, every board meeting, every difficult conversation for the past 3 decades. She adjusted the microphone, surveyed the room, and began. In 15 years of working in Virginia's education system, I've had the privilege of meeting thousands of extraordinary teachers. But today, I want to tell you about one who stands apart. I felt my mother shift in her seat behind me, adjusting her pearls, preparing her, proud, expression for the cameras. Ingrid Fairbanks Webb started her career in a rural elementary school with 23 students, limited resources, and unlimited determination. Eleanor's voice was steady, warm. In her first year alone, she raised reading levels by an average of 2 grade levels per student. Not through magic, through showing up every single day. She paused, letting the words settle. Ingrid didn't come from a background that made her path easy. She didn't have connections or privilege handed to her on a silver platter. A slight emphasis on those words. Was I imagining it? She built everything herself. Her master's degree while teaching full-time. Her mentorship program that's now being adopted in 37 counties across the state. Her family. My breath caught. Which I have the honor of introducing now. Her husband, Marcus, who has served on the Clark County School Board for 6 years, and her daughter, Lily, who told me backstage that her mom is the best teacher in the whole wide world. The camera panned to Marcus and Lily. Not to my mother. Not to Victoria in her red dress. To the family that mattered. Behind me, I heard a sharp intake of breath. The creak of a chair as someone gripped the armrest too tight. Eleanor smiled. Please welcome your 2024 Virginia State Teacher of the Year, Ingrid Fairbanks Webb. I walked to the podium on legs that felt steadier than I expected. 500 faces looked up at me. Cameras recorded every breath. And in the second row, 4 people in designer clothes waited for the acknowledgement they believed they deserved. Thank you, Dr. Hart, I began. And thank you to the Virginia Department of Education, the Governor's Office, and everyone who made today possible. I looked out at the audience, the real audience. Teachers who spent their weekends grading papers. Principals who stayed late to counsel struggling students. Educators who had chosen this life not for money or status, but because they believed in the power of a child's potential. When I started teaching 15 years ago, I didn't know if I'd last a semester. The hours were long. The pay was modest, and some people— I paused, choosing my words carefully. Questioned whether it was a path worth taking. Silence, the kind that vibrates. But here's what I learned. Teaching isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about showing up for the kids who need you, even when no one else does. Especially when no one else does. I took a breath. Which brings me to my thank yous. To my colleagues at Maple Creek Elementary, you are my village. To Dr. Hart, who saw something in me when I was just a nervous 22-year-old with a dream, I owe you more than words can say. I turned toward the front row. And to my family. I smiled at Marcus, at Lily. My husband, Marcus, who believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. My daughter, Lily, who reminds me every single day what unconditional love looks like. I stopped. That was the list. Behind me, someone in the second row stood up. Ingrid. My mother's voice. I didn't turn around. Ingrid, sweetheart. Surely you didn't forget your own mother. Margaret's voice rang through the chamber, her tone halfway between wounded and commanding. The kind of voice designed to make everyone in the room sympathize with her. The neglected mother, overlooked by her ungrateful child. I heard movement behind me, heels clicking against marble. She was walking toward the stage. 500 heads turned. Cameras swiveled. The moment stretched like taffy, sticky and inescapable. My mother reached the bottom of the stage steps, her cream Chanel catching the light. Her practiced smile firmly in place. I'd just like to say a few words about my daughter, about how proud I am of everything she's, Mrs. Fairbanks. My voice came out calm, quiet, amplified by the podium microphone for everyone to hear. She stopped mid-sentence, one foot on the first step. Thank you for attending, I said, meeting her eyes for the first time in 4 years. But the family portion of my speech has concluded. Her smile flickered, just for a second. A hairline crack in the facade. Ingrid. I'm your mother. You said you no longer saw me as your daughter. The words fell like stones into a still pond. 4 years ago, in a group message, you said I chose to be a lowly teacher and that I was no longer part of your family. Gasps rippled through the audience. A murmur of voices. Someone dropped a program. I've simply honored your decision. I continued evenly. The family I thank today is the family that stood by me. The family that didn't require me to prove my worth through a job title or a salary. A security guard approached Margaret, gently gesturing back toward her seat. She stood frozen. Not moving forward, not retreating. For the first time in my life, my mother had nothing to say. The silence lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then, from somewhere in the middle of the chamber, a woman stood up. Gray-haired, mid-60s, wearing a simple cardigan and glasses that had seen thousands of classrooms. She started clapping, slow, deliberate, unmistakable. Another person stood. Then 5. Then 20. The applause built like a wave rolling through the chamber until every single educator in that room was on their feet. 500 people giving me something my own mother never had, validation without conditions. I gripped the edges of the podium, my eyes burning. The security guard gently guided Margaret back to her seat. She walked stiffly, mechanically, her perfect posture crumbling with each step. Victoria reached for her arm, whispering something urgent, but Margaret shook her off. I caught fragments of conversations from nearby rows. Did you hear what she said? Her own mother disowned her for being a teacher. That's disgusting. So that's the woman who called her a lowly teacher. Can you imagine? The story was spreading through the room like wildfire. Every whisper, another nail in the coffin of my mother's carefully constructed reputation. When the applause finally subsided and people took their seats, I saw Margaret sitting rigidly in her chair, staring straight ahead. Her cream Chanel suddenly looked too bright, trying too hard. Victoria was furiously typing on her phone. Bradley's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles working from the stage. And in the front row, Lily was looking up at me with shining eyes. You did it, Mom, she whispered. Too quiet for anyone else to hear, but I read her lips perfectly. I smiled at her. Just her. The rest of the audience faded into background noise. My family was proud of me. That was all that mattered. They cornered me in the hallway outside the chamber. I'd just finished taking photos with the governor, a kind man with a firm handshake who told me my speech was the most honest thing he'd heard in that building in 20 years. When I saw them approaching, my mother flanked by Victoria and Bradley, moving through the crowd with the determination of people who believed they were owed an explanation, my mother's voice was low now, stripped of its performance quality. Ingrid. We need to talk. Privately. I kept my tone pleasant, professional. If you have something to say, Mrs. Fairbanks, you can say it here. Her eyes flickered to the people around us, other honorees, their families, a journalist scribbling notes. You humiliated me. In front of everyone. On television. I stated a fact. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and held up the screenshot that had lived in my camera roll for 4 years. This is the message you sent on May 9th, 2020. I no longer see her as my daughter. Your words. Your decision. I simply honored it. My mother's face went pale. I was upset. You know how things get taken out of context. Context? I showed her the timestamp, the sender ID, the heart emoji from Victoria, Understood, Mom. From Bradley. This was a group message telling everyone in our family to pretend I didn't exist. There's no other context. Bradley stepped forward. Ingrid, let's be reasonable. I was reasonable for 30 years. My voice stayed calm. I was reasonable when you seated me at the children's table. Reasonable when Mom forgot my graduation. Reasonable when you all decided my career made me disposable. I tucked my phone away. I'm done being reasonable. Victoria's mask cracked first. This is ridiculous, she hissed, her red Valentino dress suddenly looking garish under the fluorescent hallway lights. We came here to support you. We rearranged our entire schedules. You came here for a photo op. I kept my voice level. I read your messages, Victoria. Should I bring flowers? That's not support. That's staging. Her face flushed. How do you? Who showed you that? It doesn't matter how I know. It matters that you all plan to show up at my ceremony, sit in my family section, and take credit for a success you spent 4 years ignoring. Bradley tried a different approach. His lawyer voice calm, reasonable, the tone he used to negotiate settlements. Ingrid, think about this from a PR perspective. The video's going viral. People are calling Mom. People are calling Mom what she is. I cut in. You're making this worse for everyone. For the family name. I haven't had that name in 2 years. I held up my hand, showing the simple gold band Marcus had placed there. I'm a web now. And funny thing about family names? They only mean something if the family behind them is real. Victoria stepped closer, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper. You think you're better than us, don't you? Just because you got some award. No. I met her eyes. I think I'm exactly what I've always been, a teacher. The same teacher you called lowly. The same teacher Mom was embarrassed to mention at her country club. I turned to look at all three of them. I didn't become better than you. You decided I wasn't good enough, and I stopped trying to change your minds. Behind me, I heard Marcus's steady footsteps. Lily's small hand found mine. Ready to go home? He asked. More than ready. I turned to face my mother one last time. She looked smaller somehow. The cream Chanel hung differently now. The pearls seemed less polished. 4 years of careful reputation building, undone in 3 minutes on a stage she'd never been invited to share. Mrs. Fairbanks, I said quietly. Quiet. Enough that only she could hear. 4 years ago, you made a choice. You chose your image over your daughter. You chose the opinions of women at a country club over a child who loved you. Her lip trembled. The first crack in her armor I'd ever seen. I could hate you for that, I continued. I spent a lot of nights thinking I should. But here's what I realized. Hating you would mean you still controlled my life. And you don't. Not anymore. Ingrid, I'm not asking you to apologize. I don't need your apology to be happy. I've been happy for 2 years without it. I took a breath. But I want you to understand something. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing this because I finally learned the difference between forgiveness and self-respect. I turned to Victoria. You asked if I think I'm better than you. I don't. I just think I deserve to be loved without conditions. And I found that somewhere else. To Bradley. You were worried about the family name, but names are just words. Family is showing up. You didn't show up for 4 years. You don't get to start now. I stepped back, Marcus's hand warm on my lower back. Lily pressed against my side. Goodbye, Mrs. Fairbanks. Victoria. Bradley. I nodded once. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, but you won't find it with me. We walked out the doors without looking back. The fallout didn't happen overnight. It crept in slowly, like water through foundation cracks. Rachel called me a month after the ceremony with updates I hadn't asked for, but somehow needed to hear. Your mom resigned from the country club's social committee, she said. She said she needed to focus on family matters, but everyone knows the real reason. Women were asking her questions she couldn't answer. About you. About the speech. About what kind of mother disowns a daughter for being a teacher. I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl. And Victoria? She deleted all her family Instagram posts. Every single one. Someone in the comments of her practice page asked if she was the sister who sent a heart emoji when her mom disowned her sibling. Rachel laughed bitterly. Apparently, patients don't love knowing their plastic surgeon has a heart emoji to family cruelty response time of 30 seconds. Bradley had gone silent entirely. According to Rachel, he told their Aunt Patricia that the whole situation had been blown out of proportion, and that he'd prefer not to discuss it. The professional class had its ways of punishing social missteps. No one was boycotting Victoria's practice or refusing to hire Bradley's firm, but there were whispers, side eyes at networking events, the subtle distancing that happened when people realized someone's shiny surface hid something rotten underneath. Your mom's seeing a therapist, Rachel added quietly. She told Aunt Patricia she wants to understand what went wrong. I set down my mug. Good for her. You don't want to know more? Maybe she's actually changing. Maybe she is. I looked out the window at the oak tree in our backyard, the one where Marcus and I had exchanged vows. But her changing doesn't change what happened. And it doesn't obligate me to go back. 6 months later, I learned what peace actually feels like. Not the absence of noise. Our farmhouse was never quiet. Lily practiced piano in the living room, the keys stumbling over phrases with determined imperfection. Marcus argued with the tractor in the barn, convinced it understood his lectures about fuel efficiency. The chickens had opinions about everything. But underneath all that noise, there was stillness. The kind that comes from knowing exactly where you belong. I was still superintendent. The job was hard. Budget meetings, personnel conflicts, the endless paperwork of running 12 schools. But every morning, when I walked into my office, I saw Lily's crayon drawing pinned above my desk, 3 stick figures, yellow sun. My mom, my dad, me. That was my daily reminder of what success actually looked like. On our 3rd wedding anniversary, Marcus and I had another picnic under the oak tree. Lily helped set up the blanket, spreading out plates of cold fried chicken and Marcus's mother's famous biscuits. The evening light turned everything gold. Someone from a publishing house called last week, Marcus mentioned casually, handing me a glass of lemonade. They want you to write a book about your career, your journey, all of it. I shook my head before he finished. I don't want to live in the past, even if it could help other people, other teachers who've been made to feel small. I thought about it. Really thought about it. If I ever tell this story publicly, I said finally, it'll be on my terms. Not for revenge. Not for profit. Just to let someone else know they're not alone. Lily crawled into my lap, smelling like grass and sunshine. Tell me a story, Mom. I kissed the top of her head. Once upon a time, there was a teacher who found her family. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in October, almost exactly 1 year after the ceremony. No return address on the envelope, just my name written in handwriting I recognized immediately. The careful cursive my mother had always prided herself on. The elegant loops she'd spent years perfecting at charm school in the 1970s. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, just holding the envelope. Marcus came in from the barn, saw what I was holding, and sat down across from me without a word. You don't have to open it, he said. I know. I opened it anyway. The letter was 2 pages, handwritten on her personalized stationery. The cream cardstock with her initials embossed in gold. Ingrid, I've written this letter 47 times. Each time I tried to explain, to justify, to make you understand why I did what I did. But the truth is simpler and uglier than any explanation I could give. I was afraid. Afraid of what people would think. Afraid of being judged. Afraid that your choices somehow reflected failures in me. I don't expect you to forgive me. I haven't even forgiven myself. I just want you to know I was wrong. Not upset or taken out of context. Wrong. And I'm sorry for every day you spent believing you weren't enough. You don't owe me a response. You don't owe me anything. But if you ever want to talk, not reconcile, just talk, I'll be here. Your mother. Even if that word doesn't mean to you what it should. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in the kitchen drawer. What are you going to do? Marcus asked. I don't know. I looked out at the oak tree, its leaves turning amber in the autumn light. But for the first time, I think I don't need to know yet. You know what kept me awake for months after all of this? Not anger, not even sadness. It was one question: why? Why would a mother erase her own child? What kind of person looks at their daughter and sees a liability? I spent a lot of time reading about this, talking to a therapist friend, trying to understand, not to forgive, but to stop carrying the weight of confusion. Here's what I learned about people like my mother. Margaret Fairbanks grew up in a family where love was transactional. Her own parents praised her when she achieved and withdrew when she didn't. She learned early that worth equals performance, that you earn your place at the table, literally. By the time she had children of her own, she didn't know any other way to love. When Victoria became a surgeon and Bradley became a lawyer, my mother wasn't just proud, she was relieved. Their success proved she was a good mother. Their achievements were her achievements. Their status protected her from the shame she'd carried since childhood. And then there was me. The daughter who chose meaning over money. Who picked a lowly profession that made Margaret feel exposed. Every time someone asked about her kids, she had to explain me, and that explanation felt like failure. So, she did what scared people do. She cut out the part that hurt. It doesn't excuse her. Nothing excuses abandoning your child. But understanding this helped me realize something important. Her rejection was never about my worth. It was about her wounds. And here's the thing I want you to hear: if you've ever been in my shoes, you are not responsible for healing people who hurt you. You can understand them without excusing them. You can have compassion without giving them access to your life. Boundaries aren't walls built from anger. They're doors you get to control. If this story resonated with you, I have a question. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your peace? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.